Hello, welcome to our little podcast on how to game officials. Part 1, getting started. My name is Mike Wint. I'll be taking you through the sometimes confusing setup and usage of the Game Officials software system. What is Game Officials? Well, it's two parts. It is a registration and learning system, and it is also a game assigning system. Michigan is not the only state using it. There are about 35 others that are using it at this time. And we will hopefully be transitioning to a new system being put together by U.S. Soccer in the next year or so. But for right now, this is what we have, and we need to get started. You should have a login password and ID for Game Officials. You establish that when you're registered to take the Grassroots Referee course. If you haven't done that yet, please go to michiganrefs.org and click Become a Referee and follow those instructions. You will register with U.S. Soccer and take the Grassroots course. You will then create an identity in Game Officials Michigan and register for the in-person course that goes with the online course. And then you can come back and we'll show you how to use the system. There are a couple of best practices we want to talk about as you use the system. You should have a primary email address that is unique. Each referee should have a separate primary address. In the future, this is how we're going to tell which referee is which. The secondary email address can be shared with a parent, a guardian, a shared family address. In fact, we encourage it because then the young referee gets his address and sees his assignment. Mom or dad can also monitor and double check, reminding them, well, we're out of town that weekend, dear, so no, you can't take that game. So let's jump on over to the system. Well, once we're over into the system, the first thing you should see is something like this. Possibility you would see a separate screen, and we'll get to that. Now, this piece should look about the same. You can hide them to give yourself a little more screen territory. This piece, the registration history, yours will look much different. It will look more like just this top one with your name there instead of mine. Since I refereed last year and I wear a number of different hats, I have a lot more lines. Don't worry about that. As we said, there's two parts of Game Officials: registration and learning and assigning. We're going to start in the registration and learning section, which should be your default because this is the last place you were. If it's not what shows up, click Change Identity, and under Registration and Learning, click the one that says Official. And again, you won't have nearly as many entries as I do. Once you're here, we're going to talk about how you're going to register for a course next time, just to remind you, and how to go back and finish work that you didn't finish in a course. To register for a course is just, well, a little different than you started because you start from a different menu. You'll click on Courses, and it will show you all the courses that are available. If they're grayed out, they could be available when we enter something in there. Right now, Referee Courses is available. And for me, the only thing that's available is a fitness test. So I can select one of these and I can join the fitness test. Let's go back to home. Let's talk about part 2. What happens if you didn't complete some coursework? So you don't have your badge because you need to go back and finish, say, the concussion and the heading modules. A real quick way to get there is that top line that shows I'm pending in this class. That's the grassroots class that I registered for. If I click that, it will take me right to the class. Load session tracker will take me to this screen where a number of things happen. This last icon says grassroots course. That's an in-class session. You cannot do anything with that. Your instructor will put a big green check mark on that once you finish the course and he's registered you online. Any course with a lock means you can't take that yet because you have to do something else first. A course with an hourglass means you started but you didn't finish it. A course with this little green arrow up here in the upper left means you haven't started it yet. Click on the one that you haven't finished. It'll give you a chance to sit there and play the video. And say, yeah, I can hear it, and turn it back off so you don't have to listen to it, and go to resume session. Now, this is roughly where I was when I was testing out the system to be sure that we could capture the screen. You hit the button, and you pick up where I left off with a heads-up concussion, which everyone has to take right now, every year, so we have a record that you're thoroughly trained. And again, I'm going to slide out of this and still be not complete. But you will want to go in there if you haven't completed it already, complete it. If you have completed it and want to review it, as long as you're in the current year, you can go back and watch it again and again and again. Also, taking a test online. If you are taking a test online in this part of the system, you don't do so well, you'd go in there and re-click on the test and you could take it as many times as we allow. Some of them are 3, some of them are 5, some of them are 10. All right. Let's go back home and let's move to where we need to go to complete the rest of our information. Normally, registration and learning, you're only in there to register for a course or to finish coursework. This part of the system does not talk to the assigners, and it doesn't know anything about receiving games. So I need you to go to change identity. There's log out, reading from the bottom, and change identity. I want you to go to assigning system identity, official. You'll only have that one for most of you. The header looks about the same, but up here at the top it says Michigan Ref Assigning instead of Michigan Refs. We're going to start off by going to My Info. And you're going to check that the information is correct. Your full name has already been put in. If it's wrong, click Contact an Administrator and you can send an email explaining what has to be fixed. Your display name. My name, according to US Soccer, is Michael J. Wint. I want it to show up as Mike Wint because that's what everyone knows me at. I'm only Michael J. when I'm in trouble with my mom. Check that your birth date is correct. If it's not, contact an administrator. Please pick a gender. Don't be an organization or a team. Be an individual. Add a photo. If you are under 18, you cannot add a photo. It's the reflection of the myriad of state laws that we have to find the lowest common denominator. Check that your address is complete. I know someone out there has a city name of Grand Rapids, Grand Rapids. It really messes up our mailings. So please try to just make sure it's right. If you click private, your address information will not be available to be seen by fellow referees. That means no Christmas cards. You will be seen by administrators and it will be seen by assigners because they have to know where you are. But your fellow referee, when he clicks to say, oh, I need to contact Joey, well, Joey won't have an address. It'll just be blank. Phone number 1. please have phone number 1 be the referee's phone number. Because if the referee's got a cell phone and the referee is going to a field and we're trying to contact the referee at the last minute because the field's flooded and we moved the game, it's hard to get hold of the referee if you're calling the home phone where he's not sitting anymore. Also, email 1, please make that the referee's. That's where game notices are going to go to. It's sort of important that the referee gets game notices. You can add a second email, and you can click auto emails for that, and they'll also get all the notices. Anything that you click private will only be seen by the assigner. So if you don't want anyone to see your work number or your other number, you just click them, and now only assigners and system administrators will see them. The downside of making all of them private is the day before a game, one of the crew members on your crew knows they're going to be running late because of where their game is, the previous game. They have trouble contacting you if you've made your information private. I leave it to you to make the decision. I understand there's privacy issues out there in the world. Work it through. If you have questions, please be free to drop me a note. Home Association, USSFID number, and if you're on a screen that says Social Security number, don't worry about those. If you look at my info from the learning system, there's a place for social. We don't need it. Emergency contact. Please put an emergency contact in there. Because in an emergency, I want to know the best number to call instead of calling all 4 of these and finding out it's still not your mom's special phone that she always carries with her. Or in the case of a married individual, their wife or husband. Cell phone notices. New game information. If you get 3 games in a row, do you want 3 emails or do you just want 1? I like to see 3 because it reminds me how many games I have. But that's an option. If you want to get texts for game changes, you have to fill in the device carrier information. If they're on there as a pager or a phone somewhere in the United States, I think we got everyone covered. And then your phone number. And you can send yourself a test message. Make sure it worked. Now, what kind of information do you want to get notified on your cell? I want to know about my new game assignments. I want to know about game changes, date, time, location. That would include if one of my colleagues gets unassigned and someone else gets assigned. I want to know if the game's canceled, and I want to know if I get unassigned from the game. Chances are if I'm unassigned from the game, it's because the game is being canceled and they haven't canceled it yet. Or they've moved it from the home field to the away field, and I don't want to drive to Detroit, so I may get unassigned. And then re-offer the game. Group email, please subscribe. Group emails will be things like a reminder that it's time to recertify, or a mass mailing to let everyone know that all the games in Brewer Park are delayed 2 hours. It's nice to get those because you know what's going on. You may not get an individual notice of each one because there's 150 games that need to be changed on a Saturday. So you'll get it as a mass. So please leave mass subscribed. When you're done making changes, save, modify the user. It is a good rule of thumb that every time you use Game Officials, you always leave yourself in the Michigan referee assigning group. Because then when you go in to handle assigned games, you go in to take care of availability and all the things we're going to talk about a little bit later, you should always be in the right place. Because if I leave in a different persona or a different thing, if I leave as Michigan Refs Learning Center, when I log back in, I'll go back into Michigan Refs Learning Center, and then my availability doesn't work. Availability is only entered into Michigan Refs Assigning. Even though there's an availability button on the other half of the system, they're not linked together. Don't use it. So, thank you for listening to the podcast. Please tune in to see podcast number 2, Finding an Assigner. And good luck with your officiating career.